Hello, students. Today we are going to read A Thing of Beauty by John Keats. The poem tells us about how nature and its wonder mesmerizes us and take away all the sorrow that surround us from time to time. This poem is an extract from Endymion by John Keats, first published in 1818. And the first line of the poem itself has become one of the most often quoted lines in English literature. The first line, as I told you, is "A thing of beauty is a joy forever." The opening line itself gives us a glimpse into the very theme of the poem. Any beautiful object is always treasured in our mind because it provides us eternal and everlasting joy. The happiness that anything beautiful provides never fades into nothingness but multiplies manyfold whenever it returns to our mind. So it will go on giving you happiness forever and ever. So let's read this poem. John Keats was born in London in the year 1795 and died in Rome in 1821 at the young age of 25 due to illness. John Keats is one of England's greatest poets and was a key element in the Romantic movement. Known specially for his love of the country and sensuous descriptions of the beauty of nature, his poetry also resonated with deep philosophic questions. Even though his poetic career was very brief, he has managed to create and write a paramount work and has produced such beautiful poetry that till date he has become immortal in literature among the galaxy of the stars. There are few poems which I have mentioned here and they are today very, very famous. Bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art. Then Endymion, from where we have taken this poem. The Eve of Saint Agnes, Fancy, The Human Seasons, Hyperion. If by dull rhymes our English must be chained, La Belle, Dame Sans Mercy, lines on the Mermaid Tavern, Meg Merrilies, and then his famous odes. Ode on a Grecian urn, Ode on Melancholy, Ode to a Nightingale, Ode to Psyche, and Robin Hood. These are some of his famous works. Before we start reading the poem, let's talk a little about this book, that is Endymion. It's a long narrative poem in 4 books of about 1000 lines each, written mostly in heroic couplets. It is named after its hero, Endymion, a figure taken from Greek myth. So it's a mythological figure. According to the legend, Endymion was a shepherd who fell asleep on Mount Latmos and so entranced the goddess of the moon, Cynthia, who is also known as Diana or Phoebe, that she fell in love with him. In Endymion, John Keats transforms this basic story into a lengthy and complicated quest in which Endymion desperately searches for a beautiful and mysterious goddess first. In the poem, John Keats says that a thing of beauty continues to inspire us throughout our life. It never ceases to exist in our heart. With the passage of time, the effect of the thing becomes more profound. The beautiful thing is like a ray of hope amidst the world's miseries. It refreshes our souls, rejuvenates us, and soothes our frayed nerves. It is like a retreat from the ugliness in the world. Every day, such beautiful things bind us to the earth. In spite of all the gloom, selfishness, sadness, dejection, and all things we suffer in this world, The beautiful thing is like a ray of hope amidst all, like the sun, the moon shining through this dark curtain, trees, sheep, or flowers for that matter, also the green streams, waterfalls, fountains, musk rose blooms, etc. All tales of heroism which inspire us, give us the courage to fight against all odds. They are an endless source of inspiration. So, this was the summary of the poem. Now, let's see the central idea of the poem. The poem A Thing of Beauty gives a clear cut message that a thing of beauty is a joy forever. It never passes into nothingness. Our earth is replete with innumerable natural objects full of beauty. These objects enliven our spirits and remove the pall of despondency, misery, sadness, and sufferings. Therefore, we must trust the nature and we must worship the nature like God because it is going to give us happiness forever. Let's begin the poem. And stanza 1 goes like this. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but will keep a bower quiet for us, and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. In this stanza, the poet says that beauty stays forever. It never fades away. Rather, it increases with the passing time. The perception of the poet regarding beauty is that it never goes off with the passing time. Rather, it beautifies more and more. So, for Keats, a thing of beauty should have two characteristics. Number one, the beauty should increase with the passing time. Second, it should be immortalized. It should not die. It should not pass into nothingness. For him, beauty is like a beautiful shady tree under whose shade all the creatures can sleep peacefully and enjoy good health. So these are the bounties of nature, bounties of a thing of beauty, which gives us bower, which gives us relaxation, it soothes our nerves. So you get a sound sleep full of sweet dreams and hence quiet breathing. Quiet breathing here stands for healthy lifestyle and being in perfect health and shape. So you see how important that is. Keats has talked about these phenomena much way back in 18th century, which even today we are talking about, Today we talk about being in shape, today we talk about physical exercises, today we talk about meditation and going back to nature. But all these romantic poets had already talked about and already given us this mantra that perfect living or healthy being is in the lap of nature. So that also is the main theme of this poem, and that is why the poem is so contemporary. Now when we see literary devices in this stanza, they are number one, alliteration. Alliteration is when we use consonant sound at the start of two words and they are close in series and they should be repeated. For example, here S sound or sir sound is repeated, sleep, sweet. Then there is metaphor in bower. Bower stands for a shady group of trees, which gives us shade. So these are the poetic devices here. Stanza 2 begins like this. Therefore, on every morrow are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth. Spite of despondence, of the inhuman dearth of noble natures, of the gloomy days, of all the unhealthy and over-darkened ways made for our searching. Yes, in spite of all, some shape of beauty moves away the pall from our dark spirits. In this stanza, the poet says that every day it is the beauty which fills us with the spirit to live. It is the beauty which builds the desire in us to live, though there are sad moments and cruel people around us. There is misery in our life, there are sufferings in our life, and how does these misery disturb us and trouble us? So he has talked here about the miseries and sufferings which bother human beings. The first one is despondence, which means hopelessness. Then he says that there is lack of noble natured people, good people. There are cruel people around us who go on harming us all the time. Then there are gloomy days, which means the sad moments, the ups and downs in life. And when these moments come, then of course we lose our calm and we lose our composure. Then he talks about the unhealthy and over darkened ways. What does this refer to, children? This means the people who are there in our lives who have achieved success without deserving it and through unfair means. So these are the sufferings and miseries in human life. But poet wants us not to be saddened by them, not to lose heart, and not to be disheartened. Because we would always realize, if we are hopeful and optimistic, then we will realize that why these sufferings have come in our life. They have come because God believes in us. They have come because He wants us to explore ourselves. And when we explore and we try to find out ways to overcome from these problems, then we are enriching ourselves also. And we are learning new things, we are learning new experiences. So here he says that without beauty, the earth will be full of cruel people, sad and gloomy moments. Because there is always some shape of beauty that is moving away. The boat of our life, the ship of our life, it is moving away and taking us away in the safer seas, away from the problems. And what is that? It is the beauty again which is created by God, which helps us to remove the sadness from our hearts. So very important point here, children. Keats also is optimistic like the other romantic poets, and he wants us to practice optimism. All right. The literary devices used in this stanza are, the first one is anaphora, which is use of same word in two consecutive lines. So here we have noble natures. Then alliteration is there, used again in noble nature. Metaphor is also used by the poet in wreathing a flowery band, the beautiful things of our life that bind us to the earth. So what is this flowery band? The flowery band is the metaphor. And how it is a metaphor? Because flowery band is actually compared to the moments, the lovely moments that we have spent in nature. And these memories that we have gained from nature, they become a past association. And whenever you are sad or unhappy, they are going to bind you or connect you to the earth. So that is why it is a metaphor. Then imagery, of course, is there in the entire poem. Beautiful imagery is there. You can almost visualize the poem. And this has created a sensory effect. You can feel them. The effect of beautiful things lined up to a string. In where is that used? In again a flowery band to bind us. Now we come to stanza 3, which goes like this. Such the sun, the moon, trees old and young, sprouting a shady boon for simple sheep. And such are daffodils with the green world they live in, and clear rills that for themselves a cooling covert make against the hot season, the mid-forest break. Here the poet describes the beautiful things which are present on earth. So now he is going to talk about the things of beauty which he has mentioned in the poem. The first one, of course, is nature. and every object of nature. What are these objects? These are the sun, moon, trees, flowers, and the rivers. Poet says that all these things are like a blessing bestowed on all the creatures by earth, and we should really be grateful and thankful to Mother Nature for that. He further describes that the trees provide us with their shade, flowers with their beauty, rivers with their coolness during the hot summers, and all of these are the beauties of nature which are like a boon for us. And this thought we should always keep in mind, we should never ever forget. Sadly, today, what are we doing? We are actually harming Mother Nature herself. We don't realize that it is also a living organism. You have read in class 11th, the Ailing Planet, and there also we discussed the same thought. So, in this poem, too, the poet has here again highlighted the importance of Mother Nature, the beauty of Mother Nature, and how Mother Nature has gifted so many boons to us. All right. The literary devices used in stanza 3 are number 1, alliteration, which is used in simple sheep and cooling covert. S, repeated. Then C, sound in cooling covert. Then, of course, there is imagery in trees giving shade, in the growing process of daffodils, and clean river streams, isn't it? And then antithesis is also used because there are two opposite words and they are placed together, old and young. Now we have come to the final stanza, which reads like this: rich with a sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms, and such too is the grandeur of the dooms. We have imagined for the mighty dead all lovely tales that we have heard or read, an endless fountain of immortal drink pouring unto us from heaven's brink. In stanza 4, the poet further carries on with the description of the more beautiful things present on earth, such as the beautiful musk roses, which have such a nice fragrance. Then he describes the tales of the mighty warriors who laid their lives for their countries or for humanity. Now, this is the important point in this stanza. Just like the first thing of beauty, that was nature, there is this second thing of beauty, which is tales of the mighty warriors. And why does Keats call them a thing of beauty? Because they also have withstood the passage of time, and with time they have become immortal. Their deeds have immortalized them, and we remember them even today. We celebrate their death even today. And when poet says that there is a grandeur associated with the mighty warriors, he is very right. So why is grandeur associated with them? Because their deeds have been grand, and they have done noble deeds, they have done spectacular deeds, and even on the doomsday, the heaven and the gods in the heaven will remember these mighty warriors for their noble deeds and the spectacular deeds. So whenever we talk about them, we always associate them with grandeur. I hope this point is clear. And he says that this is thing of beauty also because they have those two characteristics which a thing of beauty should have. Which are those two characteristics? Keats has described in the beginning of the beginning of the poem. That is, they should not die, they should be immortal, and secondly, their beauty should increase with the passage of time. So these two qualities we find in the tales of mighty warriors too, because they also have been passed on from generation to generation. Their stories, their tales, their legends we have heard and we have read in the books. So that is how we remember them still today. They are immortal. They haven't died. in fact, and we celebrate their death, we commemorate their death, and we celebrate their birth. So, they are also a thing of beauty. He further goes on to say that these beautiful things are the gifts from God for all of us. In the last two lines, the couplet, he has compared nature to an endless fountain. That's a beautiful metaphor. So, nature is like endless fountain, which means it is getting filled up and replenished from its own origin. And it is like a nectar given by God to us. So these are those beauties which are immortal, and they give us a reason to live on this earth despite having so many miseries and sorrows in our life. So this is the beautiful message of the poem. The literary devices used in stanza 4 are first metaphor, immortal drinks. How it is a metaphor? Beautiful objects of nature are forever like a never-ending portion of a drink. Then metaphor is also used in endless fountain. Nature is compared to fountain which gets replenished. Then there is imagery, bushes full of musk roses, sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms, books describing valor of fighters, God providing us with best things. So there is beautiful imagery throughout in this stanza 2. This question, children, comes very often in board exams, even in home exams also. And this is one point where you all seem to be stuck up. The question is, why does Keats associate grandeur with the mighty dead? Keats has associated grandeur with the mighty dead because these mighty dead were people of great power, authority, and grandeur. They were wealthy, brave, and magnificent people. They are dead in their grave, but they still reflect that grandeur and glory. And that is why whenever we commemorate their death, we remember all that grandeur, and it is reflected in their commemoration too. So that is why Keats has associated grandeur with the mighty dead. Similarly, this is another question where you get problems in. The question is, how is the pall of despondence moved away from our dark spirits? Now, in the answer, we can write these 3 value points. You can elaborate, of course, them into answer. Man makes his life miserable by his own nature and actions. Amid these miseries and sufferings, a thing of beauty works wonders. Why? Because it provides hope for man. And that is why it removes all disappointments and sadness. So when you are hopeful and optimistic, then definitely the dark spirits or the sadness that has fallen onto your life, on your mind, will be removed away.